It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined today by Professor Brinda Sarathy. She is with Pitzer College. And Pitzer College, of course, one of the Claremont colleges in Claremont, California. And you are a professor of environmental analysis. What does that mean?
That's a great question. So environmental analysis is really, it's a major at Pitzer College. It's also an interdisciplinary program across the 5 Cs. And it has 3 different tracks. So looking at environmental policy, environmental studies, so more sort of humanistic aspects, arts, media, the environment, as well as environmental science. And so all 3 of these things together comprise of environmental analysis.
And I must congratulate you specifically, as well as Pitzer College, because recently you were named the director of the Robert Redford Conservancy. We've heard his name before. Tell us about the Conservancy. How is Pitzer and how is this professor before me involved with the Conservancy?
Well, I'm very excited about this opportunity. So the Robert Redford Conservancy for Southern California Sustainability was founded in 2012 by Pitzer College with this vision of how, as an institution, can we ground ourselves in the liberal arts and really think of creative and innovative ways to engage with environmental issues and environmental challenges by bringing together different stakeholders.
But how does Pitzer and Robert Redford
of
Way We Were and Sundance fame wind up together?
Our wonderful and pretty well-known college. So Robert Redford is a trustee of Pitzer College. He's been a good friend to the college for many years, and of course he has been an absolute advocate of environmental issues, as you know. And so it was a perfect fit, perfect marriage.
And as a result, Pitzer has taken a bold step. One of the first colleges in the nation to participate in what's known as the Fossil Fuel Divestment Climate Action Plan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Pitzer College was the first college in Southern California to divest from fossil fuels. And so basically it was a movement initially spearheaded by our students to divest from fossil fuels.
What does that mean, though?
Yeah, to divest. So basically,
I know what divest means, you know, to step away from, but still, you know.
It's a huge step. Not only was it symbolic, but it was aligning our values of social responsibility and environmental sustainability with our investment decisions. And
so it's the investment side. It's not that you're not necessarily using fossil fuels to the extent that you can step away from.
This is an excellent question. This comes up a lot in terms of divestment. Is it hypocritical? Is it, you know, how can you really divest from fossil fuels? I mean, if we had viable alternatives, we certainly would try and do that. But given the playing field, you know, it's not. I would have loved to bike here, Brad, but can you imagine what I would have looked like today?
Of course.
And so given the lack of alternatives, this is a small step, but an important step in an alternative economy.
But at the same time, I have to think that colleges and universities can take some steps. They can put solar cells on their roofs. They can, I mean, it is the 5 Cs. I mean, wind farms or whatever it may be. You're near the Inland Empire.
Yes. So Pitzer College has actually significantly reduced its water consumption. If you come to our college, you'll see it's quite striking. We have xeriscaping, which is sort of desert-tolerant, low water use plants all around our campus.
Which, by the way, can be attractive.
I
do want to say this. I think there's this perception, here we are in Southern California today, that we need our beautiful green lawns and you can't get color if you have drought tolerance.
And I would say that is a changing perception because more and more you see people doing xeriscape, and it is beautiful, it is colorful, it is lush, it is just different. And it speaks to the landscape that we're in.
Let's talk about the drought, because it is on so many levels scary. I mean, my daughters, when we discuss it with them, they're 13 and 11, it spooks them. I mean, we don't have a sense of what true water absence means, but we're getting close.
We are, and I have to say kudos to you for having your children being spooked. I have a 4-year-old boy, and now when we walk around the neighborhood and he sees sprinklers going, he stops and says, "Mama, why are they doing that? They're killing the fish," right? So it starts really early. In terms of the drought, I mean, we've just recently had a pretty decent rainfall, but that shouldn't allow us to think that we are in any way out of the drought.
And it's true, we have seen some nice rains this winter, 2014-15. But I have learned it's literally, to use a overused cliche, a drop in the bucket.
It's a drop in the bucket, and part of it is it takes place on the larger playing field of a warmer climate and a more arid climate. And so even though it rained, right, we need the snowpack in the Sierras to be there. And if that rain can't precipitate as snow and stay there, it's going to run off.
You mentioned climate change, and I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding what climate change means. I think for some, when you hear climate change, they presume that simply means the Earth is warming up. And that may be the case, but when we think about what's happening on the East Coast with their frigid temperatures and we wish we had their snow.
Right.
Some people start to become skeptical. Well, wait a second, there's plenty of snow on the East, so we don't have a warming climate. I understand there is a scientific reason for what we're seeing.
So these are the types of questions and issues the Conservancy, the Redford Conservancy, wants to deal with and engage the public in. So when we are talking about climate change, we can see an overall rise in global temperatures over time, but the way that weather, you know, in more local or regional areas will vary. So of course you've got Boston under 10, 12 feet of snow, and you've got drought in Southern California.
But I understand that warming weather actually causes more dramatic winter storms. Is that accurate?
I would not want to generalize. It's going to depend on where you look.
Sure.
But it is going to cause more dramatic events.
Okay.
So one could say more intense winter storms in particular areas and more significant summer heat in certain areas.
To the extent you know, I don't know if this is your...
I mean, there's a lot, and we can bring in oceanographers, but it has to do with sort of the climate. I mean, it has to do with ocean-atmosphere interactions and the way those play, in addition to like the Pacific Ocean currents, and I don't want to get into all of that.
No, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
So why is it though? I mean, look, I understand that the continental U.S. is large.
Yes.
But why is it, if you kind of look at a map and you kind of look at the West, it's bright red with these kind of dry events, and you look at the East, it's bright blue with these wet events. What's happening?
Well, and you're talking specifically, I would say, about the coastal areas, and so it has to do with systems of high and low pressure. It has to do with the way the Gulf Stream works. So there's a number of different things. I mean, the West is really shaped by the Pacific, whereas the East is the Atlantic.
I must ask you about environmental justice.
Yes, please
because that is one of your areas of expertise. What does environmental justice mean to you?
So environmental justice means accessible, healthy environments, both natural and social, for everyone. And so environmental injustice, which would be the opposite, is the disproportionate impact of environmental burdens on particular communities.
And I understand in Southern California we have seen that. I know in parts of the San Fernando Valley there are huge rock quarries and other types of corporations and businesses that disproportionately impact surrounding residents. In the Inland Empire as well, we see that. Am I analyzing this correctly?
Yeah, you're analyzing that absolutely correctly. I mean, in some cases, some of the land values have depreciated, and so you might have more low-income communities moving in after the fact. But the question is, do they have the ability to move out, or do they have the ability to get the resources to clean up those areas? You know, who was there before? Are there federal funds in place? And then in Southern California, and this is again something that the Redford Conservancy is really interested in doing.
Nice way you tie it on a bow, because we're almost done, so keep going.
Bringing in communities to engage publicly around these issues with students, with policymakers, with experts, and communities themselves are experts in this area to problem solve. So in Southern California, air quality is a huge issue. And even though our air quality has improved tremendously since the 1970s, you've got pockets of communities that are totally impacted by things like diesel.
Her name is Brinda Sarathy. She is a professor at Pitzer College. She is now the director of the Robert Redford Conservancy. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.